we're finally almost done with our best of 2024 list. And for today, it's going to be deck building for all the heart of the cards, RNG, and apparently a couple of dice along the way. In order to keep some semblance of like an order for these lists, anything that's going to be built on having a deck, a set of builds, something like that will be for our deck building category, while games that are solely focused on a run-based format will be for roguelike. And maybe that will hold up, but we shall see. For the first pick of best of the deck builders, I'm going with Mech Shuffle. This was one that we checked out quite a while ago. We received an update in terms of its art as well in 2024 and was released along the same time. And this is a deck builder where you will use your cards as kind of parts on your mech in order to do battle 1v1 against an opponent. The kind of like reading or game within the game style is that the different cards will shoot out different kinds of attacks. And you need to kind of balance which defensive cards you play versus which offensive cards you play, as you'll be constantly trying to read what the opponent is playing. And then there's some advanced stuff, such as cards that will play an effect for the following turn. So there's kind of like that, playing against the opponent while, you're trying to read them, they're trying to read you, that sort of thing. And I think it's a very interesting take on the deck building design. Definitely plays a lot more different compared to some of the other ones that we've seen, especially some of the ones that have came out this year or 2024. And I would recommend you at least give this one a check if you aren't tired of deck builders and looking for another interesting take on the design. In a very unusual twist, my next three deck builders all start with the letter D. For, I don't know, maybe D is the magic letter for a deck building. But the next one is going to be Dicefolk. This is a kind of deck builder where instead of having your standard set of cards, you have dice. Each one of your kind of monsters or characters you're going to take into battle will have different abilities, and you'll get the luck of the draw or luck of the roll to determine which moves you'll have access to on each turn. The kind of dynamics here are going to be about not only upgrading and cultivating which monsters you want as your main party, but also being able to kind of slot them moving around, choose which order to do the maps, and so on. This one, it is kind of traditional in kind of the format of play, but the added elements of using the different monsters and each one having their own kind of like special abilities, and this can be further exemplified by different artifacts or passives, does give it a really great touch for it. So, another easy recommendation for someone looking for a little dice building to go with their decks. We go from a dice to death with Deathless, and make sure I get this right, Tales of Old Russ. This is kind of like the aesthetic and vibe kind of remind me of that of Darkest Dungeon, in that your party's on one side, strange and weird looking monsters are on the right, and everyone is coming together for a little bit of combat. But what we have here is another very competent and well-made deck builder. Once again, each character is inherently their own class with their own rules, cards, abilities, all that great stuff, and you must go on a journey with them. There's this kind of like metagame of completing the character's kind of like story or mission within the world, which will unlock additional chapters, more challenges, etc., etc. As for the deck building itself, it kind of goes for more of like punchier cards, since you're not going to have a full team, so each character's abilities will have very drastic effects on combat. So the one that we played, they can kind of push and pull enemies, they can take a corpse or take an enemy and use them as a bullet shield for a turn, and another very well done take. It's not really doing anything, again, that's going to be above the norm for deck building design, but a very competent and very solid execution nonetheless. So we've had decks, we've had dice. How about a little bit of match 3 to go along with things with Demon's Mirror? Our twist here is that you have your deck of cards, of course, based on whatever your character is, but you also have a giant board of icons and symbols that you need to play around with each turn, which will impact the properties of your cards and your own abilities or offensive strategies for that turn. Get a huge line of shields, you'll enhance your defense, making it easier for you to block an attack. go for wild cards, go for crazy combos, and you can really just punch your way through a lot of the enemies. And this one, again, plays a bit differently because of that. Another really, again, solid take, and for this year with deck builders, just like with RPGs, we've had a very wide variety of games. And again, while the basic elements we've seen time and time again, the implementation of the Match 3 does add a different take and a different touch to it. So, another recommendation for someone looking for a little bit more different play to go with their deck building. And with that, we're bringing deck builders to a close. There were none other deck building style games released in 2024, at least not that I am ever aware, that could have done anything bigger than the ones that we've mentioned. Just a relatively quiet year for the genre. So, for those of you watching, what are some of your favorite examples? Something that I could have missed this year. And wait, do you hear something? I don't know. I'm hearing this strange noise coming into play. Yeah, of course. If you thought we were going to be done with deck building while mentioning that little game Balatro, then what kind of channel would this be? For our final entry of best deck building of 2024, it easily goes to Balatro. A game that to this is what Vampire Survivors was to Bullet Heavens. A game that kind of in a weird way reminds me of when I played Slay the Spire for the first time. I knew that this was going to be a big hit. And the same could be said of Balatro. For a game that manages to be one of the freshest takes on deck building design we've seen, and doing so by taking something that a lot of people are well aware of, aka poker, and kind of throwing all the rules out at the same time. It is a great example of kind of the basic allure of playing these deck builders. How do I break this game? What combination of cards and perks and abilities and all that will lead to me ultimately dominating? This is an amazing example as well of using aesthetics and kind of, impact or special effects to really sell this game. As anyone who's gotten, the dopamine rush when they see the flames start showing up on their score meter when you get a good combo. A game that is very elegant in its design, and a great example again of how you can take very punchy modifiers and effects and apply them in a way that it makes the game feel good, broken, balanced, OP, completely weak, and everything else that you can think of when describing these games. There is so much that goes into this title in terms of why it's blown up. Beyond just, again, people finding this game, it again is just this perfect encapsulation of deck building and, again, in a way, the roguelike design. That every new run means some new combination of cards and jokers, and maybe the Wheel of Fortune will work this time for you. Or maybe it won't for 99% of the time. It is a game that, again, it doesn't do a lot in terms of, amazingly complicated rules, very over-the-top, enemy designs and stages and all that. But it doesn't need to do that. It is a good use of streamlining all these elements down to their base elements, while still applying its own unique sense of style and aesthetic to it. This is going to be a game that's going to be studied for some time in terms of UI UX, and it has also kicked off officially this whole kind of gambling, not gambling arc of deck builders, as we are seeing a lot of them that have been put in early access in 2024, more coming in 2025, and heaven help us if we ever see a Balatro 2, and what will that do to everyone's free time at that point. But again, you don't need to tell me that whether or not to try Balatro, because I'm sure every one of you watching this has either already done so, or has sworn to never touch this game out of fear for their free time. But again, a phenomenal title and easily one of the best and probably most impactful games released in 2024. And with that, for real, we're wrapping up this video. There's only one genre that's going to be left, and that is going to be the roguelike genre, which encapsulates a whole lot of different games to go with it. And then after that, It is going to be best in show. This will finally be over, and we can finally start talking about 2025 games and topics, just before the beginning of February. But again, let me know where some of your favorite deck builders were, and seriously though, if there was one that was very unique or original that we didn't get a chance to play, let me know about, and I'll try and add to the list for this year. That's going to be it. Thanks for watching, and see everyone tomorrow for the best of roguelikes. Thanks for watching, and a special thank you to our Patreon supporters. If you enjoyed the video, do the YouTubing stuff, be sure to visit our Discord and Patreon, and if you're interested in more of my thoughts on design, check out my game design books.